Hello everyone. What we're going to do now is going to be called a crayon etching. Basically, we're going to have a two-part process, well actually three parts to this. So what I'm going to do is edit in between just to show you the main ideas. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get a piece of your cardstock. You want to make sure you're using a heavy enough paper. The reason I told you to use cardstock, especially the 110 pound if you get it at Walmart, is that it's heavy enough to hold up to wet materials. So on this project, we're going to be painting as well as coloring. So you're going to want to have that cardstock that's heavy enough to hold all that. So what you're going to do in the first place, on this assignment, I want you to choose 3 crayons. A yellow, any yellow you want, any red tone you want, and any blue tone you want. Basically, as I hope y'all know, these would be called the primary colors. I'm going to post videos for you to watch on the elements and principles of design, and it'll go into more detail about the colors. But just for this assignment, I want you to know that we're using the primary colors. Now, what you're going to do on the paper is you're going to take these and you're going to create any kind of design you want that completely covers this page with crayon. Now, you want to make sure that you color hard enough that you've really built up a wax surface. So what I'm going to do is just kind of randomly start making some lines and shapes. And then I'm going to color in to make sure that I've built up that layer of crayon very nicely. And you're going to take your time on this and just really make it build up. But you can see how dark that is. If you try to do it too light, if you color too light, it's not going to work for the second part of this project. So make sure when you're coming up with your design, you're coloring in a very nice, dense wax. All right, so I worked for about 30 minutes, a little longer maybe, filled in everything. I overcommitted. I wish I'd done a little bit simpler design, but it's going to look pretty good with the second part. Now what we're going to do, you're going to do a second part here. We're going to take a cup. We're going to get a foam brush. I like the ones that are a little bit thinner than this, but that's all I could find. You're going to take your tempera paint. Like I said before, you've got to make sure that it's tempera, because if anything else isn't going to work the same. Tempera is water-based, and we're going to be painting over crayon. So basically what's going to happen is if I try to put this straight on there, it's just going to bubble up and eventually just flake off. But what we're going to do is a little trick. We're going to use a little bit of dishwashing detergent. It's just going to take a, now see, this is a little thick. This is about the thickness of pudding. It doesn't come off very well, so we're going to thin that down. But first what we're going to do is add just a little bit of dishwashing detergent and a dribble of water. Don't add too much water, because if it gets too thin, then you're going to have more paint, then you're going to have more dishwashing detergent, and pretty soon you're going to have a whole cup full trying to get it the right consistency. So just a dribble of water first, and then we'll mix that up. Man, that Dawn smells really good. All right, so what you're going to do is take your brush, wipe some of the extra off. Now the trick is on this, try to go on one consistent, whoop, I didn't get enough paint on there. And you're going to just paint over the crayon. Let's see if I can get a little more on there. Oh, that's better. You'll have to just kind of find the right amount of paint and pressure to get a good coverage. If your other design shows through a little bit, that's not bad. You can kind of see it and work with it on the next part. But if it is covered up, it's usually a lot more fun because you don't know what you're going to see. So what I'm doing is I press a little bit harder and then get a little on there and then come back over. It should be a little easier. Let me get a little more. And that'll work. Now all I've got to do is let that dry for a while. It's a very rainy evening, so probably it's going to take a good while to dry. Since you're at home, what you can do is if you want to rush the process, just go set your hair dryer on hot and just kind of go over it. Don't cook it too hot or it's going to bubble up and come off. But if you just kind of, you know, blow the really warm air across it, that'll help it dry fast. In fact, that's probably what I'm going to go do now. So here we are again. I let this dry for a few minutes and I got in a hurry, went in there and used the hair dryer. It's still a little soft in one edge there, but I'm just going to work on here just to give you an idea what to do. I want to make sure that I make it clear you really, really need to use good non-washable crayons. If you don't use a good crayon, the pigment's not very good and it doesn't show up very well. And if you use washable, what's going to happen is your paints can actually bond to the crayon. We want it to just stick but not cross bond like that. So basically what we've got here now is a etching sheet. Y'all have probably seen those sets you can buy at like Walmart or Hobby Lobby or whatever. They get expensive. I mean, it's like several dollars for just one sheet. And this is a way to do it for pennies on the dollar. One of the other things I really want y'all to get from this class is you don't have to spend a lot of money to bring art into your classroom. One of the things I really want to emphasize is being as creative and frugal with what you use for art materials. I've already told y'all Dollar Tree sales at Michael's and Hobby Lobby, Walmart, you can find things, but they don't always have that many art supplies. But I want you to learn how to be resourceful and even teach students how to be resourceful. So what we're going to do now is going to be an etching, which means scraping into a surface. Anytime you're etching, it means you're scraping in the surface. This is basically a piece of wood I sharpened, but normally what I do is use a skewer. When I have this project for kids, I usually buy a bunch of skewers, cut them in half, and then sand one of the ends kind of smooth so they don't get splinters. So what I did was I just sharpened a piece of wood that I had from an old paintbrush that was broken, left one end a little flat and the other end sharp. So that makes a really good etching tool. One of the other ones that I really like to use, these Bic crystal pens. That cap is like one of the coolest designs ever. I really like to use these, but this can get a little bit too, your hand might get cramped a little bit. But what you can do if you want to make your own special tool is find a straw that's big enough to fit on that and just stick that in there. And a lot of times whenever I've done this before, I just wrap some painter's tape or masking tape around it and create a little handle. So you end up with a pretty nice etching tool. You can use anything you want to do this. I've even had people be really creative and use unexpected things. Just make sure you're not using something like a knife or a pin or a X-Acto knife. Something like that is going to be too sharp and you're going to actually scrape all the way into the paper underneath. So what we're going to want to do is just come up with a design activating the surface. So basically what you're going to do is just have fun creating a design. If you see the other design a little bit, you can accentuate that and kind of bring it back out. But I'm going to just make up a new design. I'm just going to start. And what I'm going to do is just make shapes. So you can see on this, if I turn this kind of flat, or I can turn this sideways and get a really skinny line. That's kind of why I like using this pen cap, because you get that variety of line if you want to do it that way. Maybe use a mix of the two together, almost like a calligraphy effect. But it'll be up to you to come up with the design. So you're going to create, you know, a new design over this one. Here's how this kind of works. I just kind of like making some organic random lines. Don't know what they're doing yet, but I'll turn it into something. Or this one is kind of like this. I can turn it flat and get a really wide mark. Or you can go sideways and get a skinny sort of mark. Now, the main thing I want to see you do on here, get your design, and then what I want you to realize is activating the surface with as many little marks as you want. I don't know if any of y'all have ever done Zentangle. That's like a method of drawing where you learn how to just create basically a little pattern, and you just fill in different areas with the pattern. So what I'm going to do on here is just kind of carry my theme out a little more. Maybe make that like the line. There we go. I got inspired. I'm going to basically make these lines like they're vanishing behind things. That'll be interesting. And then maybe I'll make a few of them go the opposite direction. Maybe one comes out of there and into there. I don't know. But then what you want to do is just find ways to maybe activate the surface. So I'm just going to make some organic little texture and just invent a way to make marks to activate the surface. In fact, if you want to do something like that, just do the whole thing with just some weird little pattern. It could be very interesting that way. So that's what I want y'all to do. I'll set up the due date on this, and I'll probably give you 2 weeks on this one. I'll give you 2 weeks on the ones I post later on, and then your lesson plan will be due the last week. But just have fun with it. Be as creative as you can. Don't overcommit. Start slow, and hopefully your creative energy will suddenly kick in and you'll get an idea. That's kind of what I usually do. I just start making marks until I get an idea. But you can see how interesting it starts to look. And again, this is called a crayon etching. So have fun with it, and I will talk to y'all later.